I am Anusha, pursuing MSc Psychology at Central University of Karnataka. I am going to talk about nature and use of psychological test. A psychological test is essentially an objective and standardized measure of sample of behavior. This definition is given by Anastasia. Psychological tests are like tests in any other science insofar as observations are made on a small but carefully chosen sample of an individual's behavior. It is logically simpler to consider all tests as a behavior samples from which predictions regarding the other behavior can be made. A test measures an individual's capacity or potentiality. A present behavior sample can be used as an indicator of other. Future behavior can be speak of a test measuring capacity. No psychological test can do more than measure behavior. Another definition for psychological test is a psychological test is an objective and standardized instrument to measure quantitatively and qualitatively the various psychological aspects such as abilities, potentialities, achievement, interest, and personality characteristics which reveal the behavior of the individual at a phase in a systematic and scientific fashion. Nature of a psychological test. A psychological test is a standardized measure of sample of behavior. It helps in establishing norms. There is uniformity of procedures in administering the scoring of the test. It is uses important items that correspond to what the test is to discover. The major purpose of the test is to compare the same individual on two or more than aspects or a trait and also uses to compare two or more individual on the same trait. Uses of psychological test. In classification, psychological tests are popularly used in making classification of persons, that is, for assigning the person to one category rather than to another one. In diagnosis and planning for treatment, psychological tests play a significant role in making diagnosis and in planning for treatment. Diagnosis means determining the nature of a person's abnormal behavior and classifying the behavior pattern within an accepted system. In self knowledge, psychological tests are also useful in providing self knowledge to the test takers to the extent that such knowledge tends to change their career path. In evaluation of programs, psychological tests are often used in evaluation of various types of educational and social programs in theoretical and applied branches of behavioral research. Psychological tests are very useful in research. They are frequently used in both theoretical and applied researches. With the help of such tests, psychologists frequently investigate the theoretical matters that have no immediate or obvious practical applications. There are some limitations for psychological tests. Psychological tests represent an invasion of privacy if they are used without the permission of testees to obtain personal and sensitive information. Personal tests permanently categorize the persons on the basis of the performance of the psychological test. The examinees are given certain categories like mentally retarded, gifted, brain damaged, etc. And the authority behaves accordingly, disregarding evidence of any other further change. This has a serious implication for the examinees. The examinees can definitely change, and great care should be taken in the interpretation and use of the test results. Psychological tests measure only limited and beneficial aspects of behavior. It is said that the psychological test cannot measure the most important human traits. They force the examinee to take decisions based on superficial and relatively unimportant criteria. Psychological test creates anxiety. Generally, it has been reported that when the assessment is to be done through psychological test, the examinees feel anxious and his anxiety affect their performance. Psychological tests penalize bright and creative examinees. Psychological tests are insensitive to atypical and creative responses. Such responses are not given much credit, thus providing a discrimination against the talented examinees. Finally, for getting the measuring of psychological tests or educational tests clear, it is also essential that we must make a distinction between testing and assessment. In fact, testing is more limited venture which primarily consists of administering, scoring, and interpreting the test scores. Assessments, on the other hand, is more comprehensive and wider than it includes entire process of compiling and synthesizing the information to make a prediction about the person. Thank you.